And Target supplying us with the things that we didn't know we needed. Like this sweatshirt, which I love and went back to get because I didn't buy it the first time. Hi guys, I'm Amy, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be chatting with you about some books that involve some romances that I really enjoy, as Wednesday is Valentine's Day, and I'm not a huge Valentine's Day lover, but I am a lover of romance. So that having made no sense at all, because you would think those things go hand in hand, let's get into some of the books that I really enjoy the romances, but are not your typical romance recommendations. So none of these books are technically part of the romance genre. I have made a video of all my favorite romance novels, as I am a romance novel lover. I will link that up here for you all. It's an older video and you can tell, but anyways, check it out if you so wish, and otherwise, let's get into the books. The first book that I'm going to chat with you guys about is a YA story that is probably the most explicitly about a romance of these stories, but it is a spin/retelling of a Greek myth, my personal favorite Greek myth, and that is the Greek myth of Persephone and Demeter. And I'm not going to go into what that story is because, trust me, we'd be here forever because I just can't explain that story quickly. But the story, or the book, excuse me, is Love Underground by Alicia Fields, and this is part of a series of books called The Goddesses, Persephone's Tale, and I have only read this one. I had tried to read a couple others, and it was years ago when I did read them and didn't enjoy them so much, so I DNF'd them. But this is just a really fun way to look at Hades and Persephone's relationship, and it really reimagines the way that Hades is and how he's perceived, and it's really sweet. I would probably put it at like a PG-13 rating for any of those of you who are thinking about giving this to a younger person, but it's a really heartwarming story, and I really liked the spin on Hades and him not being maybe as terrible as everybody thinks him to be. The other YA book on my list, I've talked about on my channel again and again and again, and I probably won't stop anytime soon, and that is My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. I'm not going to go into it because I've done a book review on it, and I've already talked about it in another video that I filmed today, so we're just going to say the romance in this story between Jane and her husband is too adorable for words, and literally just makes my heart smile. So if you want a fun pick-me-up, just happy read this one. And the next book I wanted to chat with you guys about is Days Without End by Sebastian Barry, and this features a romance between an Irish immigrant named Thomas McNulty, who the story is being told from his point of view in a stream of consciousness, and then about his partner, John Cole, who's a Native American man, during the time of the Indian Wars and the Civil War. And I just really enjoyed this book, and the romance and the relationship between these two men and their lives in and out of the army and how they navigated things, and it's just a really beautiful story, and I would definitely recommend it. Now, for my kind of out there recommendation of a book that features a romance but is not largely about the romance, is my sci-fi selection, and that is Dragonflight by Anne McCaffrey. This is the first book in the Dragon Riders of Pern series. I love this series, it's freaking wonderful, and it involves a romance with the main character Lessa and another character who I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to spoil it, but all I want to say is if you enjoy dragons and fantasy and being different than everyone else and adversity, you gotta read these. Anne McCaffrey is an amazing sci-fi writer. She's really good. I really should have read more of her works by now, but the romance in these books are also super sweet and make me really happy, really warm fuzzy happy, which generally is not a feeling I get out of sci-fi books, so definitely recommend. I love these books. They are just good books all around, but the romance also It's a good one. The next book I have is Paris Letters by Janice MacLeod, and this is actually a nonfiction story about Janice's experience when she went from the fast lane to a slow stroll in Paris. She saved up over the course of a year and then sold her apartment, her car, everything, and was going to spend the next year in Europe, in Rome, London, and Paris. But while she's in Paris, she does meet a man, and that is not the only point of this book. It's also about her finding herself and doing what she's always wanted to do and getting out of the grind of daily American life and living just because she has to. And it includes some of her illustrations. She is a watercolor artist, and she is just, it's a really wonderful book. And if you're also any bit of a lover of Paris, and especially viewing Paris from an outsider's point of view, I really, really recommend this. I really enjoyed it. And it read like a novel, which is kind of embarrassing for me to admit that. I didn't realize it was nonfiction until like halfway through, but that didn't, it probably made me enjoy it more. But I definitely recommend. It's not a book I hear many people or anybody talk about, but I really, really like it. And her romance in it is very sweet and very different from, I think, a lot of our experiences. The classic that I wanted to include, I don't think anyone's going to be shocked by, but it's one of my favorite classics of all time, and that is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. If you don't know, this is a story about a young woman who, her father, who had been in the parish her entire life, decided to leave because he was questioning his morality and his decisions and his faith. And so they move up north to a very industrial area in which there's a lot of poverty, and it's just not a wonderful place to be. And it's her grappling with the fact that life isn't always as wonderful as she thought it was. And she meets a man, what's his name? John Thornton, and he is the head of some of these mills in this manufacturing community, and it's about their relationship, which in the beginning she can't stand him. And it's also about exploring the fact that the assumptions you make about a person are not generally true. And I really need to reread this book. It also has a wonderful BBC miniseries about it, but read the book first and then get to this then get to the movie. That's what I meant. Anyway, it's wonderful. The romance in this is great, and I'm always here for a romance, no matter what the premise of it is, where the two people hate each other in the beginning. For whatever reason, that's my jam. The last nonfiction pick that I have is not a romance in and of itself. It is actually a collection of love letters, and that is The 50 Greatest Love Letters of All Time, edited by David H. Lowenhertz. And this book just has a wide variety of letters from real life people from all different time zones and points in history. Time zones? I meant points in history. We'll just keep going. So that includes some people like Elizabeth I to Thomas Seymour, Lewis Carroll to Clara Cunningham, Zelda Fitzgerald to Scott Fitzgerald. I can't talk apparently. George Bush to Barbara Bush. That's actually one of my favorites. It's the sweetest letter. And so many others. I literally, like, this book just, like, if I had to pick one book to say, read this on Valentine's Day, it would be this one. I mean, The 50 Greatest Love Letters of All Time. It's really good. It's really quick. You can dip in and out of it as much as you'd like. And it's a good one, guys. You should read it. This next book I just finished just a couple days ago, and that is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. And I'm not going to go terribly into the romance aspect of it because there's actually two sides to it that is very, very interesting that I don't want to spoil it. I will probably be doing a review very shortly of this book, but if you are the type of person who kind of just wants to go with what the blurb or like the description of the book says, you're not going to want to watch my review. Anyway, but the romance elements to this book, which are very, very, there's two sides to it. Very, very intense, and then the other side is very, very under the radar, I guess you could say. And I just found this story in general wonderful, but the romance love aspects of it and the dichotomy between the two situations that I'm referring to, could I be more cryptic about this? Probably makes you not want to read this book at all. But anyways, it's really sweet and it's really interesting and heartfelt and real, and I really, really appreciated that. So just recommend this book in general, but I would actually recommend it as kind of like an obscure romantic type of read. The last book I have for you guys is Joy in the Morning by Betty Smith, who you guys know is one of my favorite authors, and this is a wonderful story tale about Annie and Carl in their first year of marriage in 1927. Annie ran away from home when she turned 18 to marry Carl, and he's in law school, and this is about their trials and tribulations and their ups and their downs and their love for one another and how that changes and grows and morphs throughout their first year together as a married couple. And this book, like A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, is a very low-key, slow-moving, not a plot-driven book, but the look into these two people and their love for one another and how life happens and it changes how you see other people, including those who you love the most, is really, really good and really amazing. Betty Smith largely draws from her own life experiences, which is just, it translates into a book that is so very heartfelt, raw, and real that I can't get enough of it. This is a wonderful case study of what it's like in a year of marriage, specifically in the 1920s or 1927, but I think it can be said for any couple at any point in time in history, especially if it is a love match. So I really recommend this one, you guys. I've never heard anybody else talk about this book, but I adore it so very much. Alrighty guys, there are some not so obvious books concerning romances, but I recommend all of them. If you've read some of them, please let me know. I would love to chat about it. I mean, that's why I'm here. And if you haven't read some of them but would like to, also let me know. If you have any recommendations for some books that involve some really awesome romances, always hit me up for that, because I am always here for the warm fuzzy feels, but also at the same time heart-wrenching, you know, like ugly cries. So on that note, thank you so much for watching, you guys. I love you guys so much. So if you liked this video, please like it. And if you loved it, please subscribe, and we'll see you in my next video. Happy reading. This would be a fun way to celebrate out of the year, because she eats, okay. Freezing in my house. Oh, that was good. Good. HGT what? HGTV. Oh God. Struggle's real. In a time, what? The 1920s? 20s? 20s?